Are you a aspiring podcaster and or business owner? You're trying to figure out how your podcast can become more. In addition to that, you're trying to figure out how to stand out, not just only within your podcast, but for your business. If you answer yes to any of those questions, in this video, we're going to talk about how your podcast can become more. But first, you have to focus on your podcast so it can develop into something that is not just about creating content, marketing yourself. It's about standing out as the authority so that way people can learn more about what you do, who you help, and how you help them. And now we're going to get started with this episode. So welcome to another episode of the Phase Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey. Over the last half a decade, I produced over 893 podcast episodes while helping 30 entrepreneurs launch their podcasts in a short span of time. And I tell you this, the biggest thing that I notice is that podcasting is step number one. When you are comfortable putting yourself out there can come in different forms, different shapes. And now you start to position yourself because you are meeting your customers where they are at. In fact, this is going to be the first point is to meet your customers where they are at. There we go. Point number one, meet your customers. Meet your customers where they are at. Okay. In other words, I gotta put my ears. Golly. All right. In other words, a lot of times when I was learning about business and as I continue to learn about business, a lot of people say that you just can't depend on one particular area to meet your customers. People are not going to find you. You got to go out and find your customers. I'm like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, I got all these views online and all these different things, but I'll tell you this, that's just one part of the customers. That's just one part of the people that I'm meeting where they're at. Everybody's on their phone. Nonetheless, everybody is not my ideal customer. So if I want to go and intentionally put myself in these rooms, meeting my customers is not just saying that I'm going to produce a podcast. It's saying I'm going to produce a podcast. I'm going to be in these rooms. I'm going to be in these places. I'm going to be out there. Why? Because now as I start to understand that your podcast can be more, your podcast is step number one because podcast helps with marketing. It helps with marketing. It helps with staying consistent. What's going on, Adrian? Congratulations as well. It helps with staying consistent. It's not just about putting yourself out there. It's about staying top of mind. Meeting your customers is staying top of mind. That was the biggest thing that I had to really learn while being in business is that you're meeting your customers because you're staying top of mind. They might not become customers today. However, they can become customers if you continue to go to events, to be online, to go to different places, go to different conferences, whatever the case is. It's more than anything. It's helping you stay top of mind. Top of mind is more than just saying that I have a podcast. No. Top of mind is saying I have this problem. We help established business owners launch their podcast in less than 90 minutes by bringing the production to you. We have this solution, and when we go out and market ourselves, put ourselves out there and stay top of mind, eventually, what I recognized yesterday, I was like, hold on. Eventually, people will become customers. People will become customers. But before they do, you got to be out there. You got to be marketing yourself. I went to this, what is this called? This shopping center. I went to the shopping center and they got different stores out there, different stores. And I'm like, okay. So instead of comparing myself and saying that they have this facility, they have this location, they have these amount of customers, I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? What can I do today that will make me stand out even more? Not to say that I'm competing myself to other people. Is more so that I'm competing with myself. So competing with myself is helping me stay top of mind. Yes, there are a lot of businesses out there. In fact, the shopping center that I went to, it probably had 30 to 50 restaurants. No, not restaurants, 30 to 50 stores. Like everybody was selling something different. 30 to 50 locations or whatever you want to call it. And so as I'm there, I'm just looking around, I'm looking around, I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, they're in the same predicament that I'm in. They have a product. They have a product. They have a product and or service. But it's how they're marketing themselves. It's how they're putting themselves out there. Yes, you can have a facility. Yes, you can be online. Yes, you can be all these different things. But sometimes, majority of the time, people are not coming to you first. You got to go meet your customers where they're at in order for them to come find you. So when I start to recognize, I was like, wait, hold on. Meeting your customers where they're at is literally saying, okay, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be online. I'm going to be in person. I'm going to be at this conference. I'm going to be in this place where I can continue to provide the solution that we I could continue to talk about how we help others. In addition to that, I can just be consistent. I can be patient. Podcasting is more than what I say. Podcasting can be more because you can start speaking. You can start you can write a book. You can have a documentary. You can have all these different things to connect with different customers. In fact, I have all those different things. The book that I have is called Master Your Mind. 10 Tips to Shift Your Mindset. The documentary that I have is called Starting with the Dream documentary. I've been doing speaking engagements based off the podcast. I remember doing my first speaking engagement from doing only podcasting, and it was the Juneteenth event. It was 2021 Juneteenth. And when I got on stage and talked, there was a small audience of maybe 5 to 10 people. There was an audience of 5 to 10 people. But I tell you this, when I got up and communicated, I was already preparing to speak in front of people. Podcasting was just my stepping stone. Podcasting was my practice. Podcasting was a way for other people to hear me. But as they continue to learn from me, it's like, oh, wait, he's pretty good. Or he know what he's speaking about. At first, I wasn't that good. I had to develop over some time. But I tell you this, staying top of mind is actually saying that I'm going to market myself effectively. You have to market yourself effectively because you have to meet your customers where they're at. Every time you put yourself out there, you're marketing yourself. Every time you are communicating with somebody, you're marketing yourself. And throughout the half a decade I've been learning more about business, it's like, well, you have to do that in order for you to stay top of mind. Then you start running Facebook ads, then you start running advertising, all these different things. In other words, you have to meet your customers where they're at, because if they know that you exist, you won't be in business. And I'm like, oh, that was the thing. Podcasting can be more, because podcasting is only step one. Podcasting equals step one. People start to learn more about you. People start to learn more about your business. People start to learn more about the problem that you solve. Podcasting can become more, because it's literally preparing you. It's literally establishing your credibility, establishing your authority, establishing your trust, because you're speaking about something that you're familiar with. You're speaking about something that you have the authority of. You're speaking about something that you help other people with. When you start to see the impact of your business, of the way you're putting yourself out there, in other words, the way you're meeting your customers where they're at, it starts to appear different. When I start to see that I was meeting my customers where they're at, because every time I go to a different place, a different location, different event, different conference, they always remember one thing: I'm doing podcasting. Like they might not understand what I'm doing in podcasting, but they know that I do podcasting, because that's the only message that I've been putting out. So now, as I'm meeting my customers where they're at, some people are starting to reach out now. Some people are starting to communicate now. Some people are starting to respond now. Some people are literally saying, I saw you at this event and I want to follow up with you here. And now it's like, oh man, I'm meeting my customers where they are at. And I'm making it easier for them to reach out to me. I'm making it easier for them to understand what I do. It's not about marketing yourself. It's about staying top of mind. Podcasting can be more, because you can stay top of mind. Podcasting is step one. So you got all these different steps, all these different steps, all these different steps. And when I start to really understand business, it was like, okay, what is business? Business is solving a problem. A lot of people say if you're going to get in business, solve a problem. I'm like, what problem can I solve? I'm not understanding the problem that I can't solve. But they say when you find a problem to solve and you enjoy solving this problem, just solve more of that problem. So it took me a long time to recognize that, okay, what am I helping people do actually? Yes, a lot of people hesitate to launch their podcast, but why? Maybe it's the equipment, maybe it's the location, maybe it's the lack of structure. But why do people hesitate when they want to launch their podcast? In other words, why do people hesitate when they want to market themselves? Why do people hesitate when they want to have more customers? Why do people hesitate when people don't know who they are? See, you have to learn something new. When I start to recognize that step one was helping me skip steps. I ain't gonna say skip the journey, but skip steps. It's more than anything that when I got in front of an audience, one, I was already confident enough to get in front of an audience. Why? Because I was already practicing. I was already building that confidence. Although when I got up and spoke in my the first speaking engagement was at an open mic. That was really nerve-wracking. When I got up and started talking, I stumbled over my words like 5 different times, and I asked, could I start over? Then when I asked, could I start over, I took a deep breath and said what I was going to say. And I didn't recognize it at the time, but I recognized when I did it again recently. Okay, that step one grew into something. It grew into me positioning myself differently. You see, marketing is communications. It's communication. I just got done taking a communication class, and essentially he's talking about sales, he's talking about marketing, he's talking about business, he's talking about like communicating. And I like how in this class he was talking about like presentations, like how to do a presentation. And I'm like, I just literally got done with the presentation, and the course was good because it's a continuation of how you market yourself effectively, how you meet your customers where they're at. And when you meet your customers where they're at, they start to remember what you do. And it was mind blowing. I'm like, that's what I've been looking for this whole entire time. What is my message? What is the problem I'm solving? What is the solution? Then I start to develop. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I got a structure. Now I got a way to solve a problem. Now I got a way to help others launch their podcast in a short span of time. We actually bring the production to you. So the only thing you will have to do is just sit down. We bring the equipment, we edit, we publish. It's a no-brainer. Why? Because all you have to do is communicate. In other words, the only thing you have to do is just market yourself. You see, marketing is more than just communicating. Marketing is meeting your customers where they're at. Podcasting can be more because you are meeting your customers where they're at because you're communicating in a way where they understand the problem that you're solving. You can't solve the problem if you're not communicating. You can't have people coming to your world if they're not saying that I have this problem. Can you help me solve this? Can you help me solve it? Communicate equals connecting. You got to connect with your audience. Podcasting can become more because you are literally connecting with your audience. People start to learn more about you. People start to learn more about your business. People start to learn more about the impact that you are making. People start to learn more about your story. Your story is what makes a difference, because if nobody knows who you are, how can you meet your customers where they're at? You see, connecting creates impact. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But since it's challenging, a lot of entrepreneurs who have their own business are only focused on their product and service today. But what about the new customers that have yet to meet them? There's a book called There's a Customer Born Every Minute. And in this book, it talks about how you never know where your next customers are going to come from, but when you go out and meet your customers where they're at, your customers can come from different places. They can come from online, they can come from speaking engagements, they can come from watching your documentary, they can come from a service that you're providing. Well, any other way that you can acquire customers or you can get customers, people start to come into your world differently. And recently, it started to make sense. I'm like, they come into your world differently. But how? Why though? Because you're meeting your customers where they're at. So point number two. So point number one that we just talked about was that you have to meet your customers where they're at. Point number two is that you have to, this one's a hard, you got to stay consistent. You got to stay consistent when you're losing. I was in Atlanta, and before I had met my wife, I had went to Atlanta and went to this finance conference. In fact, that's where I met my wife at, and I learned about this terminology called the it was like how to read a stock market chart, and I think one of the terminology was like candles and something else. But essentially, the market goes up and down. Right? And there's a reason why it goes up. There's a reason why it goes up, and there's a reason why it goes down. And you got to learn more about the company. You got to do research. Like, I didn't go really in depth with it, but what he was explaining, I'm like, that actually kind of makes sense. And when I start to like go to school for business management, go to like different programs for business, go to different, just learn more about business. They always talk about when there's an up moment, there's a down moment. They always talk about that entrepreneurship is a journey, because sometimes you can figure it out, but as you're figuring it out, it's going to go down. You got good days, you got bad days, you got good days, you got bad days, but the days does not stop happening. Your understanding starts to change. So when I started to see that, I was like, there's a shift in the market. Not only a shift in the market, but there's a shift in your business. Sometimes your business might be on spot. See, I started to recognize that podcasting can be more. I'm like, okay, what can I do to start doing more of what's already working? Shout out to Action Zone, because I always refer to them, but they say, what's the low-hanging fruit? And they explain what's working today and what can you do more of to bring in more customers, bring in more awareness, bring in more revenue. And it's like, okay, podcasting is my lowest hanging fruit. Podcasting became more. Then I started to speak. Then I started to have a book. Then I started to have a documentary. Then I started to help customers launch their podcast in a short span of time. Then I started doing vendor events. Then I started positioning myself different. See, it's more than anything that the podcast is a stepping stone. But now I'm meeting my customers in different places. But now I just got to be consistent. Consistency is what happens when you're not feeling good. Consistency is what happens when you're not having no customers. Consistency is important because you can't determine when somebody's going to come into your world, but you can determine how often you show up. So that was the thing that I was really focused on. I'm like, okay, you got good days, you got bad days. You see, the shift in the market is the shift in your business. When it's shifting, you're changing. When it's shifting, you're growing. When you're shifting, you're understanding what you're doing. In business, I started to recognize, I'm like, okay, it's not just about podcasts. Okay, podcast is step number one. What's the next step after that? I go to a lot of events. I go to a lot of conferences. And what I started to recognize is this, is that a lot of people don't collect testimonials. They just let people come in and they let people leave. They capture pictures, they capture videos, but they don't capture the story of the audience. And I'm like, why is that? Why is that? Then I start to really pay attention. I'm like, okay, now what if I have the podcast plus collecting testimonials? What if I have two ways to meet my customers where they're at? What if it's underneath the same umbrella, solving a different problem? However, it gets me in the room, because now when I'm able to be in the room, I can talk about what we do. I can talk about how we do it. I can demonstrate the way we did it, and I can also explain the importance behind it. So now it's like, okay, not that I'm not doing a lot of different things. No. I'm literally focused on being consistent. I'm focused on meeting my customers where they're at. I'm focused on meeting my customers with the problem that they have. It's not about making a sale today. It's about staying top of mind so when they are ready, they know who to come to. They know who to reach out to. And it surprises me a lot of times because people are actually reaching out to me. People are actually reaching out, and I'm like, where y'all get my information from? Then I forget that I got a flyer, rather a brochure, and it has my email on the bottom. It has my email on the bottom. When I put the brochure together, I was like, I want to make it convenient as possible for people to reach out to me. When people were reaching out to get on Faith Knowledge Podcast, they was reaching out to me via email. And I'm like, where are y'all finding me at? Because I want to know so I can do more. Where y'all finding me at so that way I can continue to meet entrepreneurs like you. Where are you finding me at? You see, I'm collecting feedback. I'm staying consistent. I'm staying top of mind. It doesn't matter where you find me. What matters is that you find me. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It matters that I'm out and about so you can be able to locate me. You see, it's not just about putting yourself out there. It's about understanding that your podcast can be step number one. When people go back home and they go back to their routine, I want to stay top of mind because when I'm consistently showing up online, in person, and I'm doing all these different things, going to different places, now what happens is this. The business starts to develop. I started to recognize that if I really quadruple down on what's working, I can have a business where we help hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs on their podcast in a short span of time. So I'm like, okay, what's working? Podcast is working. Podcast is working. Okay. Number one. Number two, we start doing vendor events even more. Vendor events. That's working. Made $386.40. So all based upon podcasting. Okay, podcasting can be more. Podcasting is working. Vendor events. Okay. Point number three, speaking engagements. I recognized this the other day when I did the speaking engagement. Shout out to 1 Million Cups. Shout out to Adrian. I don't know if she's still on here. Speaking engagements. And then what I started to recognize at that moment is that there are customers in the room. So then as I'm positioning myself differently, it's like, oh, okay, let me do more of this. I don't need to do everything, but what I need to do is that I need to be consistent. Okay, webinars lead to more customers. So it's like podcasting is the first step, but then you can have layers underneath it where you can meet your customers where they're at. As you meet your customers where they're at, now you're in a better position to serve them effectively because now you have to be consistent. Consistency pays off. Hold on. Let me see where it's at. Podcast is working. Oh, yeah. Consistency pays off because when you have good moments, you're thriving. When you have bad moments, you're thriving. When you have better moments, you're thriving. When you have moments that you didn't expect, you're thriving. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters that you do it often. It doesn't matter how you do it. It matters that you do it every single day. So when I start to double down on podcasting, when I start to quadruple down on podcasting, yes, this is the step number one. Like recording content is a lot, but I'm also marketing myself effectively. So as I market myself, as I'm putting myself out there, yes, it's a lot, but I don't need you to become a customer today. Eventually, if you happen to become a customer is because of the consistency. Consistency pays off because it doesn't matter when people meet you, it matters that they meet you. It doesn't matter where they meet you, it matters that they meet you somewhere. So then I'm like, okay, this appears to be working. See, what's working equals the blueprint. It equals the blueprint. The blueprint is what matters because, yes, podcasting can be more, but if there's not a process on what more looks like, it won't be more. And it took me a long time to recognize that I need to start doing more. I need to start going out there even more. I need to start not only just relying on online, because online is very powerful. In person is even more powerful. Presenting myself differently is even more powerful. It's not the fact that that's not important. It's important is how I go about presenting it. Consistency pays off. If I show up one day talking about podcasting, if I show up another day talking about videography, if I show up another day talking about photography, I'm talking about a different business. What if I just only talk about podcasting and then speak about how we are helping event organizers collect testimonials for their event? The blueprint is a documented process that showcases what's working, that showcases what's not working. You see, your podcast can be more because your podcast is step number 1. Getting customers is step number 2. Step number 3 is finding new ways to get the customers. Step number 4 is to be consistent. You got to be consistent with the process because the process is going to teach you what you do not understand. In fact, when you don't understand it, you're going to be able to understand how to do it more effectively, how to change. See, failure is not just a slogan. It's a movement. You got to be okay with failure. If you're starting a business, if you have a business or you've been in business for X amount of years, you got to be okay with adjusting to the times because the time's not going to wait for you. Meeting your customers where they're at is being able to be proactive instead of reactive. When you proactively take action, you have to proactively be consistent. When you're reacting to time, you're not letting your business stay top of mind. If it doesn't stay top of mind, will people actually know that you exist? Okay, so point number three is this. Point number 3 is to ask for feedback. Ask for feedback, not validation, but feedback. Just to recap everything we talked about thus far, point number 1 is that you have to meet your customers where they're at. Point number 2 is that you have to stay consistent. Point number 3 is that you have to ask for feedback. Feedback is what creates change. Change only comes when you understand what's working, when you understand the reason why it's working, and then when you understand how to implement it more. So when I did a vendor marketplace last Friday, Juneteenth event with the Tampa Bay Summer Expo, we did this vendor event. But when we did the event, everything was set up. We had the cameras, we had the equipment, we had the tent, we had the location, we had the structure, we had the format. So now when people come in, they're not just saying like, I want to launch my podcast. No, there's a process to follow. There's a sales process. There's a system. There's it's organized. When they get done with producing their podcast live, it's like, okay, what was your experience while working with us? See, experience. Hello. I don't know where it's at. Dang. Let me see. It ain't popping up. Oh, there we go. Experience is everything. If you can experience it, you can understand what's working. People are going to tell you what they like and what they don't like. And when they tell you what they do like, do more of it. When they tell you what they don't like, make changes. Give you a prime example. So when I started working on the podcast, I sent it to them, sent them emails, sent them updates, all these different things. And I got feedback saying that my emails was not sending. And I'm like, I don't even know how to fix that. Because I don't understand why it's not being sent. I'm doing it good, I'm sending it out, but it's not getting delivered. And so when I discovered that, I'm like, okay, I need to fix this. That was a form of feedback. That was a form of feedback. Why? Because it's something that's really important. If you're not receiving my emails and notifications, you're not understanding why I'm communicating with you. You're not understanding that I'm updating you. I'm communicating with you. I'm sharing like what we are working on, what we have done, and why we're doing it. You're not getting those notifications. So then I'm like, man, how do I adjust to this feedback? You see, all feedback is not bad feedback. All feedback is a way to identify what's working versus what's not working. What's not working is that people are not receiving the emails. What is working is that some people, what is working is that some people are receiving the emails. So I'm like, okay, what can I do to make sure people are receiving my emails so that way people can understand like what we're doing, how to go about doing it. Feedback helps you grow. So as you continue to put yourself out there, continue to meet your customers where they're at, you got to be okay with changing and adjusting, because as you are pivoting, as you are growing, as you are learning, you are understanding what's working. Being in business, you have to recognize what's working and quadruple down on it. Like, you got to be okay with doubling down on what's working. See, what's working for us are the vendor market events, or the workshops, or the webinars, or us going to different networking events, or us doing testimonials for others. What's working, we have to double down on. What I have to keep in mind is not to stretch myself too thin. I don't want to stretch myself too thin, because right now I'm only a small team. In addition to that, when I start to grow, all these different ways to connect with customers are already in position. They're already in position. So if I double down on the feedback that I'm receiving and what's working, what's not working, I can literally have a business where we help tons and tons of entrepreneurs on their podcast in a short span of time, because we bring the production to you. You don't have to do anything but just sit down. But if we focus on improving every single day, the improvements will increase. The improvements will multiply. The improvements will compound. They can only compound when I understand that I recognize what's working, then adjust what's not working. Adjustments forces you to grow. Adjustments helps you focus. When you focus, you can do more. When you do more, you can be positioned differently. As you are positioned differently, you start to understand that you're making a difference. Solving a problem in business has to be focused on collecting feedback to identify what's working and what's not working, and what's working, do more of, what's not working, do less of. See, the emails that wasn't sending, I'm like, man, how do I fix that? How do I adjust that? How do I make sure that people are receiving the emails? I'm like, okay, let me go to ChatGPT. Then I start thinking about the customer experience. I'm like, hold on, what if while they're there, they send me an email? That should remove the communication barrier, because when they send me an email first, I can just respond to it when I have time. Now, the hint that I got from ChatGPT, then it gave me other ways to do it. I'm like, let me try this first. Before I go out and do all this, let me just make sure it works. And so I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to try it. Then I come back and confirm that. Nonetheless, feedback is what makes you change. Feedback is what helps you grow. Feedback is what helps you stay top of mind. All feedback is better than no feedback, and no feedback ruins your business, because people are not telling you what's good and what's not good. They're just going along the way to say thank you. But what if the feedback helps you grow? Growth comes from intentionality. You have to be intentional with your podcast because your podcast can become more. But before it becomes more, put systems in place, put processes in place, put a structure in place so you can follow it to the T. And when you follow it to the T, now you can have customers. Now you can be able to meet your customers where they're at. Because it's not just about being online, it's about being in person. It's not just about being online, being in person. It's about being a speaker. It's not just about being online, being in person, being a speaker. It's about being providing value. Those who provide value are the ones who stay top of mind. That was good. That was good. So just to recap everything that we talked about today, point number one is that you have to meet your customers where they are at. If you don't meet your customers where they're at, a lot of people won't know that you do exist. Point number two is that you have to stay consistent. There's good moments, there's bad moments. How you handle the moments determine how consistent you're going to be. Point number three is that you have to ask for feedback. Feedback is what creates outcome. Outcome only comes from you understanding what's working, what's not working, and why it works. So if you are an established business owner, an indoor or multifamily investor who struggle to market yourself effectively and always thought about launching your podcast but hesitated because you was unsure how to go about doing it, shoot us an email at Terrell@failureisnknowledge.com. And you can definitely sign up for a free podcast strategy call down below in the link. So down below in the description. So lastly, don't be afraid to fail because failure is knowledge. Hit that follow and subscribe, and I'll see y'all on the next one.